and I'm really, really happy to be here because I think this is a very, very cool topic that still is like underestimated.
Yeah, totally. It's like I have so many questions actually in my DM on amiea DM asking, oh, which taper do you recommend? Because we have classic taper, short taper, medium taper, super short, super long, and long taper, which is quite a big selection. And I don't think everyone really understand. And since you're doing pretty much all different techniques, so I think you're really the best person to give this final, like a proper advice when you can really, when it can click and you think, okay, I know exactly which taper I need.
You're so sweet. Thank you. But yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that if you have figured out, if you understand as a permanent makeup artist, like you tapers, you are going to get all the options, all the tools available for you so you can take good decisions about what tool are you going to pick. And of course, taking good decisions on your end results. So at the end of the day, that's what it matters, right? That the result of your work. So knowing your tools is key. If you know that, then everything just becomes super easy. So, and I do want to go over like generally real quick because we're going to be talking about tapers. But what are tapers? Well, a taper is part of the needle. So in general, needles for permanent makeup, they have 4 characteristics. The first one is diameter. The diameter is the thickness of the needle, right? The overall, actually I have one, let me show you. So this, it's a needle. So all the tube, the thickness of the tube is called diameter. And there's different kinds. There's 0.20, 18, 0.25, 30, 35, etc. Now, the configuration is the second. So first we have diameter, second we have configuration. So the configuration is like what kind of needle it is. Like if it's a, for example, I have here, I have, oh, hang on a second. This is actually a configuration. It's for microneedling, but not for permanent makeup, but it's still a configuration. This one has 6 needles. So this, of course, we're going to put it on the side because today is not the topic that we want to target. So for example, I have a 3 RL. So that means that there are 3 needles in the cartridge. And this is a round liner. So there's round liners, there's shaders. The difference between liners and shaders, the liners are tighter. The needles are more tight together. The shaders are a little bit more sparse. So they both create different results. But at the end of the day, what you want to know is the configuration is a round liner, a shader, a magnum. I do have a magnum here too, I can show you. If it's a like just like a flat, sometimes we have flats that I love. The 5 flat. This one is a magnum, is a 7. So that's the configuration. So I think we got that clear. So it could be flats, single needle, 3 needles, 5 needles, 9, 11. There's many. So that's what is regarding configuration. Now, needle count is what I just mentioned, right? Like how many needles are inside the cartridge. And then the taper, and that's where we're going to dig in.
Yeah, I mean, and there is so much to actually. I think we can have another 5 lives about this topic. But yeah, I think the tapers are one of the most difficult subject.
Yeah, so stick around. If you have a lunch break, just stick with us. If you have to go back to work, make sure you watch the replay. So what is a taper? So the taper is like the end of the needle, and it's the tip of the needle. And this is why we're here today, Anastasia and I, because this is a topic that is not being so popular in our industry, but yet so very important. So why? Because the tip of the needle varies from medium tapers, like you mentioned in the beginning of the live, long tapers, extra long tapers, short tapers. There are actually extra short tapers too. So why does this matter? It matters because there's different, so you have the tube here. It's a little dirty because of course I use this for practice, but anyway, you have the tube and then the end varies the length of how sharp or how pointy the needle is going to be. So that's the taper. And actually I do have, I'm going to do something real quick. I don't know if this is going to work. It's the first time I ever do this. So I'm going to put this I can't even speak. I'm too excited. Magnifier glass and here. So maybe, hopefully,
Wow, what a great idea.
we can see it's a 10-time magnifier glass. And let's see if we can see the taper
Oh,
here.
yeah. Wow.
Okay, let me find something white. Let me find it.
Thank you for joining. Yeah, we can see actually what a
Now,
great idea to show it.
can you see it better like that?
I think it was better before because on white it's a little bit yeah.
Okay,
On the dark, I think.
let's stay without.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you have here.
Mm-hmm.
So in this particular needle, we have, this is a long taper. And this is, I don't know if you can see, but this is where it starts getting narrow and down.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the taper. So hopefully that helps. And please, guys, put here in the comments if you could see the taper or not.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it was not a very good representation, but I'm trying.
And if
Can you
you
go
have any
faster?
questions, please let us know. And also, I can add the image as well, the one I showed you before. Maybe it will be easy as well to explain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know you have some images and graphics that we can show you too. So we want to make sure that we have very, very clear like what tapers are. I did a demonstration on latex, just kind of to show you what the difference you can receive in the results that you're doing. Because I know, I mean, there's so much ground to cover, but a taper, say one, round line taper 0.25. It's gonna give you a different effect if you do a hair stroke or a line than if you do shading. So I have here, and hopefully you can see it. Otherwise, I am going to put my magnifier glass. But here I have this is a small taper, and the diameter is 0.35.
This is a
This is shading.
short paper.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
this is shading, and this is a hair
Mm-hmm.
stroke. And I want you to compare with a medium taper with shading and a hair stroke. And if you notice, this is more visible than this one because the taper starts or gets shorter, right? Like when you have a shorter taper, it's gonna be, I think it's 1.5 millimeters. And then when you go to medium taper, it goes up 1 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of difference between a small to the next level, you know, from small to medium. It's just 1 millimeter difference. But if you compare, for example, a small taper versus a long taper, look at the difference from here to shading,
Yeah.
and from here to here for a hair stroke. So the shorter the taper is, the more pigment is gonna pump into the skin. And I kind of like see it as in my head as a just think about, you have the housing, which is this part, this housing, and it has certain diameter there in order the needle to go in and out. When you have a smaller taper and you're trying to pump this liquid out of your cartridge, a smaller taper is going to pump a little harder because it's going to be thicker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to pump more fluid out of the cartridge. Versus if you have a very, very sharp needle on the tip, it's not going to pump as much, right? Because it's a smaller needle going out, and it's not going to push as much pigment out. So I would say that's the first difference between like the size of different tapers. The shorter it is, the more pigment you're going to inject. The thicker the line is going to be. The narrower the tip of the needle goes, the taper, then the less pigment you're going to implant. So thicker or smaller, right? And sharp and less pigment, if that makes sense.
It's really important to choose the right taper for different PMU procedure because it can really affect it when if you want light shading and light effect, so assume you have to aim for the long taper.
Exactly.
And
So for example, if you have, let's say, and you know what, another important thing to kind of like think about it or see it is the taper is going to determine the size of the hole that you put it in the skin, right?
yeah,
So if the taper is longer, the tip is sharper and it's right, it's more pointy, then the hole is going to be smaller. And if the taper is shorter, the tip is shorter, right? Then the hole that you're going to make in the skin is going to be a little bigger, right?
yeah.
So, of course, there's going to be variations on the diameter, that's why I wanted to like go through everything, because you can have like Sandra say bye-bye. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you for
Sandra.
joining.
Thank you.
Leave us a comment. Keep watching the live when you're done working or whatever you're doing, so you can tell us what you think. So anyway, you can determine that. How big is the hole that I want to create? I want it like a thicker, very condensed and shading, for example, or a line that is very, very sharp, or I want a very, very thin and fine line. So then if you want a fine line, if you want to create very thin hair strokes, then a long taper is going to be your best bet. And like I said, so there's those two things are super important. Tapers are going to determine the size of the hole, and it's going to determine the amount of pigment that goes into the skin. Okay, so very, very quickly, just going over again, needles are determined by taper, configuration, needle count, and what else? Somebody
Thickness.
tell me here. There's four.
The
Well,
thickness.
exactly, the diameter. So then the taper, just talking about that, is going to determine the size of the hole and how much pigment goes into the skin. Okay, so I think that's clear. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's clear for you. Otherwise, type a question. All right, so now, when to choose what, right? Because that's like the biggest question. Like, how do you purchase cartridges? How do you figure out which one is the one that you are going to need? First of all, I would say you need to have them all the cartridges available. You want to have all diameters, all tapers, and all configurations. Ingrid said all clear. Awesome. Thank you, Ingrid. So why do you what do you want to have everything? It's because you are going to deal with every skin type, every like different approach that clients want with the permanent makeup. Like maybe you have a client that she'll go like, hey, you know what? I just want to do like a shaded eyeliner, and you want it to be very bold. So you're gonna choose a smaller taper. If you want something that is like super powdery, you just want a very soft shadow, then you're gonna choose a medium taper or a long taper. But also you have to take in consideration the type of skin that you're working with. Because if you have, for example, somebody who's like older, you have the possibility to do a shaded eyeliner. What's going to happen here is that you have older skin, is more sensitive, is more delicate. So if you want to do, say, a very soft shading, just very powdery, I wouldn't use the long taper, just because long tapers are more sharp. So they can tear the skin. Of course, like we talk about, there's so many different things that we have to evaluate when we're working, not just the taper, the diameter of the needle, but also the speed of the machine and your hand speed and your pressure. So those are like, it's a multiple elements here for the perfect formula. So, but yeah, you have to put in consideration what skin type are you working with and what is the goal of your permanent makeup. So that will help you. So when you have all these cartridges in, like just available in your studio, then you can have available and pick the one that it's proper for that specific task. Because the thing with permanent makeup is that we customize everything for each client.
Wow, I want to make a note, but I can the good part that I can rewatch it as well later on. And you also can on YouTube. If you have to go, it is going to be on our live, in our feed and on YouTube as well. Because it's
Yay!
really neat. You need to rewatch it a few times because it's so much information.
I know it's a lot, but I'm trying to make it like
Great.
very simple. So it's just kind of like going. I think I really like the idea of breaking
Yeah.
down just about tapers, because just with that topic, you can talk about many different things and many different elements and combinations of things. And so that's why we didn't want to like deep into diameters and anything like that, because I mean, I think those like are easy to understand, but the taper is always like a tricky question that we often get asked. So yeah, so basically, say, let's talk about just brows. If you want to do a powder brow and you want a lot of saturation, you don't want any like fluff, nothing like that with powder brows. Then if you have, say, like a young, thick skin, I will use a medium taper because you want to saturate more. If you have a little bit more delicate skin, but you still want the saturation, a small taper is going to be good. But again, bless you, just consider the speed of your hand. Because if your pressure is too strong, if you have a heavy hand, then aim for a medium taper, because remember, the small taper is going to leave a bigger hole, and if you're like pressing too hard, then you can damage the skin. So if you ask me, what is my go-to taper for the most part, because I use them all, but for the most part, the most popular are medium tapers and long tapers. And my favorites are long tapers. I always say that because I just feel like it's such a fine needle, it's such a pointy and sharp that I feel like I can actually move the other elements around, like my speed, my machine speed, my pressure. I can adjust those towards the goal that I'm trying to achieve. So that's, for example, powder brows. Now, if you want me to talk about another one, just leave here in the comments. What technique would you like to talk about? I'm going to talk now. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, what if it's an oily skin? Let's say we have the medium age client with an oily skin. Would you also aim for these tapers? Let's
Yes.
say for the powder brows.
I would, if there's, and here another question, like, do you want pixel brows or you want saturated brows?
Well,
More.
let's look pixel brows, saturated, and hair strokes. Which would be choosing these three? Because this is the one which is the most asked.
So if you do powder brows and you want them to be like super natural, I will go for a medium taper. If you want something more bold, then a short taper. And then you asked me for hair
The hair
strokes.
strokes.
For hair strokes with nano hair strokes, just nano brows, I would do long tapers
And
because you asked me about oily
yeah,
skin. Oily skin tends to blur everything over time, right? Because it's an active skin and it just has more oils in it. So say 6 months after the procedure was done, everything is going to blur. So if you use a sharper needle, the hair strokes is going to stay like crisp over time.
hmm,
And that's what I would do, even if it takes me a little longer, because of course we're working with a long taper, a smaller hole, less amount of pigment,
yeah.
right? So I would definitely work just a little slower with my hand so I can inject more pigment so I don't have to go over and over again and damage the skin, right? Because we don't want to get trauma in the skin. We want to saturate with the less pus as possible. So, but I would do for nano strokes, long taper.
Hmm.
I have very, very good luck with that. Very good results with oily skin. But again, everything can work for you. You just have to try it all. You just kind of have to play with every configuration and different skin type. And this is why time always give you the knowledge and the experience, because as you go over the years and the clients, you will work with different skin types and you're going to be seeing different scenarios. So that's what builds up your knowledge.
You know, there's often a lot of we emphasize a lot of pigments, but apparently, you know, listening to that, it's affect everything. It's affect color flow. It's affect healed result. It's affect the actual effect you want to have. It's so much around that. So it's so important to understand the tapers and needles in general, because it can really, you can have an amazing work, or you can actually have a very average or even bad work if you choose the taper incorrectly. Because from listening to you, am I right of thinking that also the taper is affecting the healed result, isn't it?
Yes, in a very minimum way. It's not, I mean, unless, the technician is not using proper, it's not using proper pressure and speed. For example, like I said, let's say a long taper and you're working with very delicate, mature skin, say somebody who's like around 70, 75 years old. If you're working too fast
Mm-hmm.
with your hand, or if you're like, yeah, putting a lot of like friction on the skin is gonna rip and it's gonna bleed. And of course, the healing process is gonna be longer, and it's because there's more trauma to the skin. So that's why when you work with long tapers, you really want to be like very mindful of your speed with your hand and your machine. So you're always treating the skin with the best approach, so you're not tearing anything apart. But yes, it can affect the healing process. Again, it's not like it's gonna be a month healing or she's gonna scar. I mean, unless you're present and you have no experience, I wouldn't use long tapers. But if you have the experience and everything and you treat the skin right, it's not gonna be a huge difference. Maybe 1 day difference, 2 days difference if there's more trauma in the skin. But yes, the results affect too, like you were saying earlier with the color. Like the pigment is going to be different when you do a hair stroke than when you do powder, because powder is more shallow, it's more superficial, so the color is always going to be warmer, versus a hair stroke is going to be cooler, right? Because you are
Yeah.
saturating more pigment into this line. So, for example, if you want to do this, is actually a very, very good approach I really like, is that when you're working with hair strokes, for example, I'm going to show you one hair stroke here. I'm going to put this, see if that works again.
Yay.
Okay. All right. So, for example, this hair stroke, where is,
Mm-hmm.
oh, shoot. I'm not pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay. say this one. This one is just one pass,
Wow.
okay? But say like you wanted to make this part of the hair stroke thicker. What I would do is like work with a medium taper, long taper, preference long taper, and then grab you a small taper and then just work here in this area to build up dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really good. Why? Because you know, small tapers are gonna put more pigment in the skin and the line's gonna look thicker. And guess what? You don't have to do a lot of work because the small taper is gonna do it for you.
Yeah.
It's gonna make it thicker and it's gonna make it more saturated, more pigment in the skin.
So
Lip and brows.
yeah.
Aw, thank you. Lip and brows. What's your name, honey? Such great tips. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And by the way, where is a classic taper, which actually it's, I believe, and I hope I'm still right, it's quite unique to our brand, the classic taper, which is, it's been quite popular. But would you say, what would you use classic taper for?
Classic taper, you're talking about specifically about Cheyenne?
Yes, about the Cheyenne classic taper,
Okay.
yes.
So, well, to me, that's kind of like a standard taper. And I believe, if I remember right, it's very close to a medium taper. Because again, there's not a lot of difference. You do have a graphic here, right,
Yes, I
Anastasia?
do. It's just what I noticed when you have someone in a live, you cannot show the image. So I'm gonna
Oh,
try to pull it through somewhere else. Yeah.
Rochelle. Oh, what a beautiful name. Thanks, Rochelle. Leave more questions, whatever you want to know. I'll be
Yeah.
happy to answer as the best as my possibilities. So, but yeah, I would say classic. It's similar to medium taper. And the thing again is like you're talking about 1 millimeter difference. So we go to 1.5, right? So that's where, yeah, it's too bad we can't show that graphic, but yeah, like say I'm gonna use this one here. So let's say the taper start here, right?
Mhm.
And this is a medium taper. So if you have a long taper, you're gonna go just a little higher, and that's where the narrow part is gonna start decreasing in size all the way down. So it's 1.5 for small tapers. I think it's 2.0.
I'm going to try to
Yeah,
find it graphic.
1.5, and then I think it's 2.5, yes, and then 3.6, and then 4.6. So they just vary for it's, and I mean, think about it, it's just one
Yeah.
millimeter.
Yeah.
But in permanent makeup makes a difference, huge difference. So yeah, so basically that's the difference between tapers, but I hope I answered your question right with the classic
No,
taper.
absolutely. I'm actually now trying to find the image, which I will on my other phone, so maybe we'll be able to show it. But from your experience, what are common mistakes when PMU artists make the wrong selection with the tapers? What would you say? How do you like, from your observation, or maybe in your own experience when you were starting?
Yeah, I think like small tapers, I think that's the common mistake that happened to me too when I first started is that I thought they were smaller, so I feel more comfortable.
Mhm.
Like the pointy the needle is, the more overwhelming it feels like.
Mhm.
It's like, ooh, it's so tiny, so fine, and I'm just gonna cause damage or whatever. So I feel like that's when a permanent makeup artist can get overwhelmed, and they tend to grab a small taper because it's just shorter, it's less drama, less, I don't know. Yeah, less, what is the word I'm trying to find? Yeah, so less scary. So, but when you work with a small taper, what happens is that if you are inexperienced, because you are putting a lot of pigment, there's two things that can happen. One, you can go very strong into the skin and put a lot of pigment. And if you do, say you try to do a line, it could be for eyeliner, it could be for a hair stroke, but you put a lot of pigment, there's a risk of migration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with small tapers because you're putting more. The other thing that I've seen, and I made mistakes, is the angle of the machine. See, I have one machine ready here. So the angle of the machine, when you use the surface and it's 90 degrees and you're working with a small taper, you're going to inject less pigment.
Mm-hmm.
But if you work in 60 degrees, you're going to inject more pigment. So on top of that, you put in more compared to the other cartridges, then you're actually tilting your machine. Then what's going to happen is that you are going to have a higher risk of migration. And what is migration? Migration is something that you don't see right away after the treatment. Your client's going to leave. She's probably very happy, you too. When she comes back in 6 weeks, you're going to see that the line didn't stay as crisp as you were planning to. And there, if you go too deep too, obviously, like I said, if you're pressing too hard, then the pigment can actually blur into a stain. So when you see hair strokes and you see like little dots around the hair stroke, that's pigment migration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when that happens, of course, you want to avoid this at all costs, because if that happens, pretty much the only thing that you can do is remove it with laser, because you're so deep into the skin.
Mm-hmm.
When obviously when you see those dots is because you pressed too hard, so you went to the hypodermis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the layer that we want to implant. But if you say you put a lot of pigment, it's just going to be a little chunky. That's it. Not a big deal. So the worst case is to get migration like that. That's scary. In the eye, I was always so scared about it. So with eyeliners, I would like to stay with medium tapers, for example. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's a safe taper to work with. It gives you enough, like it's kind of like the sweet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah, so it's a safe zone. And I think for eyeliner work really good because I mean most people have very thin skin. It's the thinnest skin of the body. But then on top of that, if you're working with a client that is older,
Mm-hmm.
it's way thinner. It's crazy. Like I don't know if you guys ever worked with mature skin, say 75, 80 years old lady doing eyeliner? Because I
And by the way,
mean,
Ingrid, thank you for your nice comments. Iman, hello. Thank you so much also for being with us. I did see all your comments and thank you so much. Okay.
yeah, thank you, Emma. Yes. So,
By the way,
well, I have many times working with very, very,
yeah.
very thin skin, almost like paper. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, but on another phone. So it's actually, so we start with the classic taper, which is 1.5 millimeters, and
Mm-hmm.
then we are moving to the short, super short taper, which 1.4 millimeters. Short taper is 1.6, 2.4. Medium taper is, I assume it's one of your favorite, medium and a long taper. So here you go. You can see, guys, the difference between the tapers. So it is uh, quite a difference. Even for, okay, it's just a few millimeters, but I assume it does make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see,
See,
the
like
long
from
taper
long
is,
taper,
yeah,
it's just like I said, it's just 1 millimeter. Well, actually, the from long taper to
yeah,
short
here it is.
taper is 2 millimeters.
Oh, yes, here it is.
Yeah. So 1 millimeter
Yep,
changes the game for sure.
exactly. So since we start talking about eyeliner and lips, just to, because I'm sure lips is also important. So if you're doing lips, which taper you would go for?
Well, depends on what I do. So if I want to do a lip blush, I have a client that she just wants something in her lips.
Hmm.
I would do long tapers if she has like good skin, like she's younger, like firm skin, I would do long tapers. I like long tapers because I can deliver just a little bit of color, good enough to penetrate the skin, enough to put like in one pass. Sometimes, seriously, one pass is enough color to put there. And I use a very low speed so I can have a gap in between puncture, right? Because the speed of a machine is going to be slower. My dots are going to be separated, so the color is going to be like see-through. It's almost like, yeah, it's like almost like they're going to put a gloss with a little bit of color. This is if I have a client asking for lip blush and they want just a pop of color, that's it. If I have a client that same characteristics, younger skin, good lip tissue, thick skin, healthy lips, then I would do medium taper. If I want to do lip color, which is different. It's kind of like what I have right now.
Yeah.
So actually I have nothing on my lips. I love this.
Oh,
This is
wow.
cranberry from
Oh,
Amiea, by the
wow.
way. I love
Oh,
it.
it's beautiful. And if we're talking about the older skin, very thin, sensitive, which taper would you go for the lip for the same effect?
Medium
Medium
taper.
tape.
Yes. Yeah, medium taper, just remember, long taper, it's longer, it's sharper. It can cause more damage in the skin. It penetrates a little deeper too. Medium taper, a little milder, a little more like, okay, I'll be cool. And then short taper, more pigment, and then, of course, a bigger hole. So, yeah, that's, thank you, Eman. Am I saying your
Yes.
name right, Eman? So, yeah, that's what I would do. But it's like it's really hard to answer one question like straightforward because it really depends on the situation. What color do you want to put? Like I have, for example, when I use say a rose pink, they want like something natural and something very subtle. With Amiea, I don't like to super saturate because Amiea pigments are so good. Like they can saturate so much. And then sometimes if you do a medium taper and or a small taper, you're gonna saturate a lot. So if you're looking for a lipstick look, then go for it. But if you want a lip blush see-through, long taper and spread out the pixels. So you can actually have that look that you're looking for. For lip neutralization, which taper? That's a really good question. I honestly use long tapers, but I like medium tapers, and it really depends on how big the lips are and how much the coverage needs to be. Because for lip neutralization, you might have somebody who is like mild, like maybe some decoloration here and there, but it's mild and the brown is light. So you can use a long taper because you're not going to have a lot of coverage. If you want something like subtle that you, for example, you have somebody who has a very pink, this has happened to me often. I see these situations at the office. Very, very pink, bright pink color. And then I just have like a very mild brown outline. So for those, you can use a long taper because you don't want to get a lot of coverage. Sometimes they just tell me like, I just want everything to blend in. So I would use a long taper because I don't want to get a lot of saturation and then have one color on the brown and then like different color on the rest. So, and you always be conservative, like less is more. Seriously, this is not the exception. Do a long taper and healthy lips and then see it in 6 weeks. If you need to add more, it's safe to add more. You're gonna be in safe zone. But if you go too crazy right away with lip neutralization, then you might overdo it, and then it gets you in a point where you're in a difficult situation. So that's what I would do.
And would you say, which I don't know because I'm not an artist, I know a lot about our products, but just thinking, would it affect the way you stretch the skin from using the different tapers?
I would say that stretch on the skin, it's got to be really like standard for
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like it really needs to be like stretch well, where there's some resistance in the skin so the needle can actually penetrate efficiently. If you're not, I don't care if it's like older skin or younger skin, if you're not stretching well, you don't have the tension in the skin for the needle to penetrate properly.
Yeah.
So stretching is very important, and it's going to vary depending on the situation, because if you have somebody with a lot of wrinkles in the lips, and I'm not saying old people, like I'm sure you have seen women that have like a lot of wrinkles in the lip tissue versus people that they do have a very like stretched skin on their lips.
Or lots of
This has
fillers. Yeah.
nothing to do with age, but it has to do with genes or maybe fillers, right? So if you have somebody with fillers, you don't need to super overstretch because the skin is already stretched. You just have to like adjust your stretch where it's tight enough so everything can go in. If you have somebody with tons of skin, extra skin, yeah, you have to like even like kind of micro stretch every place where you're working, so you're actually controlling the placement of the needle in the color that you want.
Yeah, because if we're talking about a thinner, mature skin and a long taper, obviously you have to be careful, because if you stretch it, it's obviously more trauma can be if you don't control your pressure, if you're heavy-handed, for instance.
Yes. And then the other thing that I like to consider is going back to the question with the lip neutralization. If you have somebody who has very, very dark lips, you want to have more coverage, right? So maybe a medium taper to small taper, depending on the thickness of the skin and the characteristics of your client, I will use, because you want to cover more, right? So again, if the more efficient you are, the more pigment you put in to the skin, the less trauma you're going to cause. And stretching is really important. Now, another thing that is very important to consider is when you're doing lip neutralization, pay attention to the client's like skin, because when you have somebody who has excess skin in their lips and you're not taking in consideration those lines where you're actually applying the color, what I'm trying to tell you is like if you just stretch and then just go for it, painting, 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 when you let the lips go, they're gonna look okay. But once they smile, they're gonna see lines of the color saturation. So I feel like when you have a situation like this, stretch like vertical instead of horizontal. So you can actually keep in mind those lines. So that's something that happened to me once, and actually was with a guy, and I was like, you don't, when you're working on men's lips, you don't want to have any sign that that person has permanent makeup done. You want it to be as natural as possible. So you really have to take in consideration all the things that you see, pay attention, observe your client, take pictures. Like even if you're not like 100% secure what you're gonna do, what I would do is in the beginning, and I always do to tell this now, like I always have a consultation with my client, but in the beginning, when I didn't know exactly what to do, I will take a picture and then program their appointment. In the meantime, I will study the lips, and I will like pay attention that they have wrinkles, where they have wrinkles, what happens when they smile, have them take a picture smiling and not smiling, and then analyze the colors, because lip neutralization is an advanced technique. If you are a new practitioner, I don't recommend to attempt lip neutralization. First, dominate your lip blush and your lip color, and once you master those, then move on and learn lip neutralization techniques. But if you are already there and it's still new to you, because you know, like you already mastered with lip color, but you are still new to lip neutralization, take those pictures, take them home when you're calm, just relax in bed and observe. Observation is the key because it's going to give you information. The more information you have, the more power you'll have in your plan. So, like they say, how do they say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail,
Yeah,
right?
it's a very good saying. That's a very good saying, and with a great explanation. So we might need to have a live just for that because it's really there's a lot of things to consider and to cover. And just one more question about the short tapers. So from what I heard, the short tapers you can use to emphasize some part in the hair strokes. Let's say the body of the hair stroke, if you wanted to have more 3D effect. Where else would you use the short taper?
Well, you can use it in an eyeliner when you just want to do, like, for example,
Lash line?
lash enhancement, or you want to do just a classic eyeliner. That could be, but again, I mean, this is something that you will do, I would do, and this is personal because, again, I mean, you can do whatever the heck you want. If it works for you, that's awesome. So what works for me is short tapers only for regular like skin, not for very, very old skin.
Mhm,
No.
mhm, mhm. And thank you for all your love, guys. Kali, thank you. Also, Iman from Pakistan, always sending us good comments and love, and everyone else. Thank you so much for
Wow.
all your attention. It's really, we're really appreciating it, and it will be same. So if anyone have more questions, please drop them here. We would be happy to answer them. If you missed this live, you can still comment under this live or on our YouTube page, and we will make sure we will get back to it. To be honest, Cecilia, I think we have a great idea. Since there is it's so many important topics, maybe we can also break it down and do the similar real short stories, which we've done before. But we only
Yes.
do like, okay, what tapers for hair strokes or for shading technique on different skin types, and we just break it into few shorts because I believe this topic is very important, and you can see the all interest we get.
Yes. Yeah, we can just get everything compacted with very short videos. So
Yeah.
if you have questions, you can just scroll. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you so much, Emma, Kelly. Thank you, everybody, for your very nice comments. Lash Beauty, thank you for the following. Good
And by the way,
placement. I love it.
always cartridges. We have over 50 configuration in universal cartridges and the specialized amiea cartridges. You can get them all in shopamiea.com. Visit Cecilia Johnson, our ambassador, our amazing ambassador discount, and get 10% off. It's the Cecilia 10. The
Yes,
Cecilia 10. You can also see it in the stories. You can, if you struggle with a code, maybe we can just put it in a comment here.
I'm gonna
I'm going to
actually. I
put
was
it.
gonna say
Yeah.
you're
We're reading each
full
other
of great
mind.
ideas.
Yeah.
It's
So
really
it's shipped to most of EU countries, to US, to Canada. So you can get always configuration, including the new microneedling cartridges, universal microneedling cartridges, which
yes.
we have already done live before. So if you're interested, please go to our YouTube channel or Instagram and watch, because this is a great cartridges to top up your game and add extra services. So
Yes,
yeah.
one more thing
Yes.
before I know we have to wrap up, but I want to add something else.
Yes, please.
Don't get overwhelmed with all the cartridges that we do have available there, because as long as you have a universal docking with these machines that we have, the H2, the H3, use all of them, guys. Seriously, like I have, like for example, these is from Cheyenne.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I'm going to tell you what I use a lot. I use the three for eyeliners and for, um, to fill in the body of the hair stroke. Where is my Magnum? I had a Magnum here I showed you earlier. I don't know where it go. But the Magnums, I love Magnums for leave neutralization, for example. And when I want to have a lot of coverage, and this Magnum I believe is 0.25, so you're still like on the long tapers, but you are packing a lot of color with those Magnums. I love those. The 5 flat I love for the eyeliner, the eyelash enhancement. I have a video, I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post that video. It's crazy the amount of time that you spend doing an eyelash enhancement, which is just to fill in between the lashes. It takes no time. It takes 2 minutes. Like if you can do that with your clients, you're gonna be a money maker machine. Like seriously, because I believe like it takes longer to numb the skin than do it. Actually, do the permanent makeup. So
So what
yeah,
is
there's
this? What is this needle, magic needle, which can make you tons of money? Is it a Magnum which taper?
the flat,
The
the
flat.
5 flat.
And it's I assume it's a medium taper or short taper.
Ah, that's a good question. I don't remember. We need to look it up in the website, but I don't think if it's not a 0.25, it's gotta be a 0.30.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just a flat, and then I'm gonna show you the video because it's good. You can actually use the 7 Magnum too, or the 9 Magnum for lash enhancement. If you have somebody who's on the younger side, I would say less for older, more for younger, and that's a good formula. But don't feel overwhelmed because you're gonna go to the website. But now you should go like with confidence because now you know about diameters, configurations, and tapers and whatnot. So go to the website, and we carry different cartridges. So we have the if you have the H3, all the universal cartridges, you can use pretty much all the Cheyenne that they're actually for body tattooing too. They're amazing. They're amazing cartridges, so you can use that too. And if you have something specific for like permanent makeup with the other machines, like the H1, the remind me the name. I always
Evolve,
forget
evolve.
the
I mean, evolve.
no, the other one, the Gene.
A
Is
Genius
it
Pro.
Genius? Yeah, Genius. Um, they have specific cartridges for that too. But yeah, don't get overwhelmed. Just go take a look. And if you click in the description, it'll tell you the specific. This is something I really like about the website is that it's very explanatory about what kind of taper it is and actually the diameter. So you can actually know now, choose well, and do an amazing work.
And Laksh Beauty Care, she says she's from India and would like to have the short video for explaining about permanent brows. And I also love your work. Oh, that's so nice.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
you can find loads of videos on AMI International YouTube channel. Actually, Cecilia videos. We have video for brows. We have our lives recorded. And also Cecilia herself have a lot of training videos and amazing, incredible work on her page. So please make sure you follow her.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really hope this was helpful. I tried to break it down. I know I always wanted to make it super simple, but there's so much information that I feel like could be so useful. So I don't want to keep anything for myself. So I hope it was good. And leave a comment if you want to learn about something else. And then we'll put something together in this
Exactly.
session.
So please, if you give us feedback, we will do because we are doing it for you. And was super useful, even for me. I learned actually a lot of things from you because you're the artist and actually you're the one who work with these cartridges every day. So the tips you get is fantastic. I actually gonna now break down to the smaller questions so we can create the shorts. Which with shorts because we're really incredibly useful. So you always give more than we ask for. This is a great part.
Thank
Always more.
you. You're so sweet.
No, even for the 40, you only have half an hour. Look, it was 1 hour and it's still not enough, as always.
It's not enough, never enough, but it was a pleasure. Thank you for doing this. And yeah, if you have anything, just reach out to me. It's always me behind the account. I don't have a social media manager or anything like that. It's me. So if you want to ask me a question, go ahead and ask a question. And if you want to learn anything else, we can definitely keep that in mind and for our next live.
And Cecilia have a great online courses as well. So if you want something more in depth, yeah, please contact Cecilia because she's a great trainer, very passionate, patient, and
Um,
and passionable.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, she
Yeah,
is
I
your
have
girl.
online training, so we can do it and we can work in the distance as well. So it's not, something that you have to do when. you're only in person. So yeah. Thank you so much, Anastasia. It was
You
so good seeing you. Don't get lost, my
know,
dear. I
you
really like that we're always in
please.
contact. Seriously, I really appreciate you friendship because you might think like, oh, they just talk when there's Instagram lives, and we're not. We're in constant touch. We text from time to time,
Yeah.
catch up, like updating about weddings and
Yeah, about
trips,
personal work struggles,
dogs.
good things, bad things. It's such a good connection on so many levels. And I actually saw your video of your house with the snow, and I'm so jealous. I miss snow.
Uh,
I want
uh,
to snow. Bring this
don't be
up.
jealous. It's very cold. And I see you in Portugal, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could be there. One day
You
I'm
know,
gonna go visit you.
I lived in Siberia, so I know what is 3 meters of snow. So to be honest, I actually miss this thing. The only problem when I go back to Siberia in winter, it can be minus 42. So I'm a little bit already out of this temperature. It's very cold. And we
Well,
just have
whenever.
all the
Go ahead.
Russian for Lisbo. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I don't want to ignore her. How to follow up you on Instagram? So if you see, maybe Cecilia, can you just leave the comments so maybe it will be easier for Olga to follow you? But actually, yeah, because she wants to follow you on Instagram.
I'm gonna say follow me.
Yes.
And then you just tap over, and then it'll take you to my profile.
Yeah. And if
But
you
even
put
if you go,
Cecilia Johnson, it's actually if you go to our profile in this live when it will be posted, or you will see so many content with Cecilia, so you can easily find her and follow her.
yep,
And for the video, we ask how can we see the video you mentioned?
the man, the video. Oh, I'm gonna post it. Actually, I just thought of it. I did it like last summer. It was like July. So I'm gonna post it on the academy, but I'm gonna tag myself in this. So it's gonna be my two accounts. I have
And
two
put us
accounts. This is Cecilia
in
Johnson.
collaboration so we can all see if you don't
Yes,
mind. Is it okay?
I'm definitely gonna do that. So I'm gonna do yeah, you are going to able to see it in my the Cecilia Johnson, the Bespoke Academy, and amiea International. So you can watch it there, and you see how fast it's like real time. You can pack uh, eyeliner or lash line like this.
And the Lux Beauty, I have done so many eyebrows in India, but your work is so much better than our. I want to learn that tip and tricks. I would like to. Yes, this is exactly why. Yes, please follow Cecilia. Please go on our YouTube. It's really Cecilia always make explanation with latex, with needles. So if you watch it, you can learn so much, and it's all free, and it's all on AMI International YouTube page. So you will learn so much from her, or you can join her online masterclass to really learn even more.
And you know what? I highly recommend to open your cartridges. Seriously, I do that when I practice with them for a little while, and they lost, like they're. I'm gonna reach something that I dropped. See how they're made, like what is inside. So this will help you to understand. This is actually see like all these plastics that go into the housing and understand the plungers and things like that. It make be curious because these will help you to learn more about your tools. So take them apart, see what they're inside.
Exactly. And by the way, Olga Radchenko Lisboa. So I'm also in Lisboa. See, we actually get, and it's, yeah, so you're based in Lisboa. I'm going to send you the private message, Olga. Yeah. It seems
It's
like
so
we're in the
funny.
same city.
I can't see the comments. I
Yeah.
see the old comments. No, I don't see any new comments
Oh,
now.
it's so strange. But anyway, you have loads of cards, loads of things. I see where is thank you for the live. It was great. So, oh, thank you guys. So, Cecilia, you get lots of love and appreciation. So, thank you so
Uh,
much for your time. And thank you for
Baka.
staying with us.
All right. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, my
Stay with
darling.
us.
Our ambassador, me, Ambassador Angel.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're so sweet. Bye. See you
Bye.
next time.